6.3, we're looking at simplest form. Simplest form for a fraction means when a fraction is in simplest form when it's represented using as few equal parts of a whole as possible. Now that sounds really complicated. Really what it's just saying is, if we remember something like from the first few lessons, if I had 2, 3 fourths, if I had my fourths, and I had this many shaded in, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of those 8s shaded in. Is there an easier way I could break this down? Is there an equivalent fraction that's maybe smaller? If you notice, when I was drawing it, I counted by fourths first. I could shade in all of this, and that's 2 fourths. I'm representing it using a lesser amount. Now, could I shade in doing the same thing with a lesser amount of fraction pieces, let's say? I could, if I notice this is 1/2. And that uses the least amount. I can't, the next smallest I could get would be 1 whole, and I know that this isn't 1 whole shaded in. Now that gets kind of confusing with the visual. We can look at it more with an equation. So if I have something like 4/8, I want to think, are they both divisible by something? So 4/8, I know right off the bat that 4 and 8 are both divisible by 2. No, 4 divided by 2 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. That gets me that number right there. Now, looking at this, I need to stop and think, is this the smallest I can get, or are they both divisible by something else? So I know 2 fourths, I could do it again. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and that gets me that 1/2. That's simplest form. Now, this is going to hopefully remind them of what we did in chapter 5, because probably the easiest way to think about this, well, I can go and just say, okay, what are they both divisible by? And maybe I'm going to have to do it a couple of times. If they can remember what factors they have in common and go with the greatest common factor to divide by. The greatest common factor. That will help us. So let's look at a fraction like, let's do 9/18. So I could say, well, I know 9 and 18 are both divisible by 3, but that may not be the biggest. So I'm going to write out my factors here, or at least think them in my head. My factors of 9 are 1 and 9 and 3. My factors of 18 are 1, 18, 2, 9, 3, and 6. Okay, so I could divide both of them by 1. That's not going to get me very far. I'll still end up with 9/18. 2 is not a common factor of both of them. 3, I had said, if I divide it by 3, it'll give me 9 divided by 3 is 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 6 I don't have in common. But when I'm looking here, I do see that both 9 and 18 have a common factor of 9. Now, this is the greatest number that they both have. It's the largest. So if I divide both of these by 9, I'll see that 9 divided by 9 is 1, and 18 divided by 9 is 2. Now, the way that we'll know that a fraction is in simplest form is when 1 is the only factor that the numerator and denominator have in common. So if I look here, my factors of 1 are 1, and my factors of 2 are 1 and 2. My only factor they have in common anymore is 1. Now let's look at something like 5/6. So is 5/6 in simplest form? So again, they're only in simplest form when the only factor that they share is 1, my numerator and my denominator. So my factors of 5 are 1 and 5. My factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. They both have 1. They do not both have 2. They don't have 3. They don't both have 5, and they both don't have 6. So the only factor they share in common is 1. So this is in simplest form. I can't do anything else to represent it using fewer equal parts. So really, it's going to be making sure that we know our factors. We know which factor is our greatest common factor, and just be ready to divide all the time.